Hey, I'm really excited to have you guys here and hearing this information. I'm Jordan Wells. I would work with Crosspoint Church in Lynchburg, Virginia, and we got some things going on in the church safety realm and personal safety realm, things that are happening, and then we have some opportunities for training so that we can push it away from happening at our churches or schools and things. Um, Recently there was in multiple states some people going into churches and casing them, believed to be terrorist type activity. We don't know until something happens, but this behavior is very concerning. And Marko Galbreath is here, and he looked into some more of this. Marko, can you give us some more insight as to what occurred, and then what kind of, we'll talk with Brian here about what kind of training we got coming up here in the next month.
Yeah, well, the machine worked. It did exactly what it's supposed to do. People saw suspicious behavior. The group of young men went into several large churches, very large churches in Fairfax, Virginia, and were asking specific questions. Do you live stream? And we know that's a no-no. Don't ever live stream. Delay it 5 or 10 minutes. But they're asking, do you live stream? Because that's where they get their attack on camera. If that's and that's how they get it out quick. That's what they do. Then they're asking about building layouts. Where does this go? The structure. A lot of red flags, and these people picked up on it, called law enforcement. Law enforcement hears tons of these type of complaints, several times a week, a day, and some of them are credible, some of them are not. This was very credible. Fairfax County Sheriff's Department got involved, federal law enforcement agencies got involved, and it's because people noticed unusual behavior and they did something about it. Had they not done something about it, things could have gone sideways. So that's why I'm on board with what Brian is teaching. We do a little bit of it. Brian's going to get in deep. Most attacks are preventable. That's why we do what we do. When I go back and interview these people that have been involved in active shooter attacks, they're like, we saw that, but we didn't do anything about it. So they are preventable through proper training. You don't have to be military or police to pick up on this. We're not asking you to see something and go tackle the person, make an arrest. But Brian's going to talk you through, why do we do this? So it's so important, and it can be learned. It's simple. It's just awareness. See something, say something. But so many people, you hear of an attack. Oh, we knew something was up. I knew something was up with those guys. Why didn't you say something? They are preventable. That's why this class that's coming up that Brian's going to talk about is so critically important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I appreciate that, Marco. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jordan, you want me to go ahead and tell
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
about it? Yeah.
Yeah, tell
So
us about this, and then we can, at the end, we'll make sure we got some links in there for people to get more information or register.
yeah, so first of all, one, I appreciate both your time and thanks for having me on to discuss this. But just like Marco was saying, one of the biggest things is people don't fully understand is all these attacks that we're talking about are preventable. Every single one of them, theoretically speaking, is preventable in a sense, but it starts with some sort of recognition of, hey, this seems odd or this seems off. And like he said, we teach all kinds of different folks, everything from like, community members, that we're talking to right now, all the way up to, SEAL teams. And what we teach is all about understanding what we call the gift of time and distance, right? So how do I recognize pre-event indicators early so I can act sooner? So the idea is, how do I mitigate an attack? How do I actually prevent something from happening in the first place? And that's what we stay laser focused on. So what we have coming up at Liberty University is we have a 1 day course that we're going to do for a bunch of folks. It's geared for kind of police executive leadership. But the idea is for us, it's anyone can attend that type of course and get some understanding, the basic underpinnings of what we do and how we do it. And then immediately following that, there's a 3 day course going on where we actually get into some more of the details and a lot more practical application, and you learn how to do and learn how to apply this skill set. And the idea of it, like I said, is understanding kind of the gift of time and distance and what that means, and what are some of the barriers that everyone falls into when it comes to things like situational awareness, or why they miss these. And then what we give everyone is sort of a framework on how to understand this in a process going forward. Some very simple algorithms of understanding that there's a baseline, then you might see some anomalies, and then I have to make a decision. And so to kind of give you sort of an example of what we mean by this, We stick to sort of fundamental, universal human behaviors that can be seen anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter the language, culture, all that stuff, right? It's we look for things like demonstrations of intent, right? How something is different than what I should typically see. And if I start right there, just like Marco was saying, well, now I have the kind of the confidence to go, wait a minute, that is one of these things. I better go call someone. Now, it doesn't matter what your role is. I just kind of tell people one time I was training a Navy SEAL Special Reconnaissance team, and then 2 weeks later I was training a group of school teachers, and everyone's like, "Well, that has to be a completely different course." And I was like, "Well, the science and the fundamentals are exactly the same. The application is going to be slightly different with those two groups of people and what they're targeting and what they're going after, but the process of learning and doing it and understanding it is actually the same. And we like to use a lot of kind of everyday examples because, this isn't something that I go, all right, this is for, church safety and making our people secure. It's like, yes, it is, but it's also for better customer service and seeing things better. Meaning, the name of the course at Liberty that we're doing is called Navigating High Risk Human Encounters. Okay, but the tagline is proactive detection of threats and opportunities. So if I think about those two things as almost the two sides of the same coin, right? The same skill set I can use to get better at reading and understanding the environment and being proactive about my security. Well, that also allows me to be proactive about everything else that I'm doing. I don't wait till something becomes a devastating problem. I address the issue up front because I can recognize it sooner. So I always make the joke too, like, yes, this made me better as a sniper in the Marine Corps. It made me better at different, special reconnaissance missions and different government agencies I work for all over the place. But it also makes me a better dad and a better husband, right? And a better community member because I'm recognizing these things sooner so I can intervene sooner so things don't spiral out of control. So the big takeaways for that course, the overarching theme is that it's about time and distance, right? The more time and distance I have between, a potential threat, right, to myself, right, I can come up with a better solution, or I can utilize more assets, or I can call who needs to call. But if I don't build that time and distance into it, right, there's an actual tactical way to do that in a sense, like an actual literal way, but we also mean it in a metaphorical sense, right? I want to act now, right, when things are calm and I have control of the situation versus waiting until it escalates, because then you're kind of rolling the dice at that point, right? The bad guy or the person that means you harm, right? They've got the advantage then in that situation. So how do I take that away from them? Well, by being proactive about it. So even the examples that Marco talked about that just happened recently, some everyday person had to sit there and go, wait a minute, this seems interesting or odd or different. I should probably call someone. And they did, and obviously it was a legitimate threat. So they were right. But let's say it wasn't. Let's say it wasn't a legitimate threat, or it was a bunch of kids or doing whatever. Okay, well, what's the problem then? There's still like there's no downside to doing that and going, hey, I better call someone. But most things occur, most things go, it's always after the fact, or after the school shooting, or after this, and someone says, I thought it was weird a while back when I saw this, or I thought it was kind of different when they did this, but because they never, told anyone about that, no one ever put all those pieces together, and they weren't able to see this for what it is. So what we help people is really how to see. How do I use a framework using science that's legal, moral, and ethical that I can use no matter what the situation is to give myself what we call the cognitive edge. So I'm not there to teach you tactics or shooting or fighting or any of that stuff, right? That stuff's all fun and I love doing it, but I say go to people like Marco for that. Go to the experts, right? We teach you how to be. What we're doing is the cognitive gym, right? The critical thinking space where you can determine what's the most likely thing that's going to occur, but what's the most dangerous thing that's going to occur. And then I can balance that out and say, hey, wait a minute, this is one of those things that falls into that category of this might be dangerous. So now I'm going to call up Jordan because he's our security guy. Or I'm going to call up Mark, or I'm going to call up whoever that is that controls that situation and get that next level of help. And if you can get that out to a large group of people, it's much more effective that way. Meaning, sure, I can take a high-speed military unit and I can get them really, really good at the skill set, and they're awesome and they're great at reading human behavior and they're doing all that. But that's a small group of people, right? I would rather take an entire, let's say, church congregation and just raise their level of awareness by 10%, 20%. Well, across a few hundred people, Now we're talking. Now that's massive. That covers sort of the seams and gaps in our security and in our community so that you can't hide in there now. Now we know what's going on. And so if I can raise that sort of collective awareness, it's just a much more effective strategy for defeating these folks that want to do us harm.
Exactly, exactly. And to even twist that a little bit more, in the church, our mission is the Great Commission. It is to bring people in and service them, give them the attention they need, help them when they're got issues, got problems, or whatever it is, and draw them and bring them to Christ. And to be able to do that, if we can see people where they're at, and these skills, even if it doesn't turn to, we'll never know where what we prevent by seeing people where they're at and then contacting them. We should be great. I tell all the safety guys that I work with, you can't know somebody's abnormal until you know they're normal. So you need to be seeing people where they're at, how they're interacting, making contact, shaking hands, seeing things, what's going on. And then that will make you so much more aware to be able to go and talk with people and draw them to Christ. That is our mission, pastors. That is our mission in every ministry we have in the church. So if we can teach everybody that skill set, they will see people and love them to Christ. And then we will also see those things where people are meaning to do us harm, and maybe we prevent it. Most violence occurs in the church from within the body. And people think it's a stranger danger. It's these guys coming to look to do this harm that are waving the red flag. Well, most threats, most harm comes in the church from congregants that are not being serviced. They're upset with the pastor, upset with the counselor, they're upset with some domestic issue, they're upset with the child care. But we need to see them when they start acting that so we can connect them. This information helps us do that. I have over 38 years in military and law enforcement, and I'm thinking, how do I teach the guys to see stuff? This, Greg and Brian and Marko, they're teaching how to see this and what to do. Then you can see them and be able to translate. I did this training 4 months ago with Brian, and I was telling you, I was blown away. They're 38 years of experience in the streets, law enforcement, military, and how do I translate it? How do I communicate it? They're doing that. So you're going to be able to see things, understand things, and help people. And then we also have the area of preventing stuff from happening. We can't stop it from happening everywhere, but we need to be able to do things to stop it where we're at and stop saying, not here, blind eye, we'll just hope it's somewhere else.
And Jordan, I'll tell you, we had a customer we were working with one time because we work with hospitals, schools, churches, law enforcement, military, private sector. We have a kind of a wide scope of industries and people that we work with because we stay laser focused on what we do. But I was at, it's called a major distribution center for this company in the South. And this woman who worked the front desk, she's 60 years old. She was sort of the face of the company as people would come in, and they didn't have a lot of customers coming in, a lot of deliveries and things going on. It's in sort of this industrial area. And she is still this day the best security operator I have ever met in my entire life because she knew every delivery driver by name, what time all the employees come in, who always runs late, who's this, even to the point where, we were talking to her about this stuff. She said, yeah, can you talk to the boss? Because we were working with their executive team to start off with. She said, because, for about 2 weeks, during the month of July, because it these big, beautiful glass front to the building with these two doors. So the sun comes in at this angle, and for about an hour and a half, I really can't see out into the parking lot and who's there. And I was like, you have to be the best security person. She was like, I'm not security. Or like, oh, yes, you
Oh,
are.
yes, you are.
You absolutely are. Because she understood cultivating those relationships and that's what it's all about. It's that sort of customer. She's looking at it from a customer service mindset. And I'm going, man, if I could get some of the security folks that I work with to do it the way you do it, like they're going to be unstoppable. And if I could get her to understand some of the security impacts of what she's doing, but she was doing it without even knowing that, right? So she could tell, hey, something's off today with this person. I go, that is what we're talking about. And to
Yes,
cultivate
exactly.
that across the culture of your organization, now you're really sort of operating at that speed of trust. Now things aren't slipping through the cracks anymore. So there's other like there's just other ancillary benefits to what we're talking about with this training. And so once you kind of see that, like you did, Jordan, it kind of opens your eyes to, oh, there's this bandwidth of human behavior and things that I can do at every portion of my life. And like you said, it gets me better at calling people to Christ and bringing people into the church and keeping the community safe at the same time. So there's a lot of benefit to looking at
E-
the world this way.
Exactly. Like you're saying, these things they're gonna be able to leave, and we'll talk about the difference of these classes in just a moment. But they're gonna be able to leave with stuff that's gonna be working. Mark, you real quick, you were telling me about you did training recently, and within weeks somebody saw and prevented something. Can you tell us real quickly what that was?
Yeah, it was a construction company. California has a Violence Prevention Workplace Act. And so we've been going to California, teaching some businesses. This was a large construction company that primarily focuses on public schools. So we talked about situational awareness. We talked about pre-attack indicators, reading body language. 1 week after the training, they're on the job site. They saw a guy with a backpack walking in. The body language isn't right. He wasn't right because of what we taught them to look for, pre-attack indicators. Make a long story short, they called the police. Police had to call out the canine. They tased him. They called it a helicopter, and they found in his backpack firearm, ammunition, zip ties, some other nonsense, and he was walking into that school. They stopped him because all they did was look and see through the training, something's up with that guy. And they didn't act. They called law enforcement. But what would have happened had those guys? That's nothing. I'm making that up. I'm imagining that. But they were trained and they picked it up and they did something. And like you said, Jordan, earlier, we'll never know for the rest of our lives how many lives we saved that day. That those construction people saved that day. We'll never know. But we do know there's a good chance that he saved a lot of lives that day through training.
Yeah, exactly. So this is in all areas. It just helps to kind of like taking the scales off your eyes. You're going to see things, and it doesn't you're not going to walk around paranoid, schizophrenic, and you're not going to walk around having to go in and be the security guy. Just open up so that you don't go into the gas station when it's being robbed. You don't drive into something because you're able to see things, pay attention. So there's so many things that this is going to help you with. It's worth the time. Now, Liberty University is flipping the bill for this. They're paying they're paying Brian and Greg to come in and do this, and they're not charging us for it. Now, this is huge. The 1 day class, the command college class, is on Wednesday, February 5th. It is a virtual class. They're going to have some people in there. I'll be in there. Marko will be in there. Obviously, Brian will be in there. But that's virtual, 8-hour class. And we'll have a link here to how to sign up for that. That's targeted for the lieutenant and above. That's targeted for the pastors, the people in administration, the people that are going to end up needing people that get the full training out on the front, out there seeing it. I need you pastors. I need you people to get on there. Security leaders, get in there so that you can understand what this is and how then you can utilize this with your people. And then the 3-day class comes up the next day, February 6th, 7, and 8. That's going to be on Liberty's campus. And again, free. It blows my mind. I told Brian before, it's worth thousands of dollars. They said I could pay him. I'm not going to. Liberty, but Liberty is paying this because they know the value of this. We need to impress upon Liberty, thank you, but show up is the way you say thank you, by taking advantage of it, not making it so that I already know they have over 40 people for the 3-day class. And so we're filling it, but there is room for you. It's worthwhile coming down. People come from out of state for this. It's worth traveling for this. If you can't do all 3 days, which is, get 24 hours of continuing ed, if you do it, but if you can't do all threes, do day one, which is a Thursday. If you can't do, if you can do 2 days, you got to do 1 to do 2. You got to do 1, 2 to do 3, because it builds on it. You will leave Thursday with day 1 with actionable stuff that you can use. You come prepared to do all 3. It's worth your vacation time. You're not having to pay for the training. You're just paying for the time. But if something happens and you didn't do what you could do, I know I can't live with myself with that.
Well,
I'm going to prepare.
And we want to reduce injuries and save lives, but I don't want it, you do not want to be sitting on the witness stand in trial and have an attorney ask you in front of a judge and jury, what did you do to protect your property? What did you do to prevent or reduce injuries and save lives on your property? You'd better have an answer. This is a 3-day event for free. Yeah. I'd like to be able to respond to that attorney and say, you know what? I sat for 3 days in a class learning to take care of people and property to reduce injuries and save lives. That alone is worth everything. Everything. Yeah. We want to reduce injuries and save lives, but we want to show that we've done our due diligence to protect ourselves and our family and our church or our workplace, whatever it is.
This isn't small. You're not just going to come and sit and then go, well, you know what? That was no big deal. I'm telling you, I've had a lot of street experience, and Brian's able to break it down in a way that I was understanding why I was seeing things, and I gained additional knowledge. I'm going again, I'm spending all 4 days. I'm spending those days because I know I'll be better off for it, and my team is going to be there. So, you know what? My church, I want your church protected. My church is going to have a large number of people with eyes open, because we're going to put people in this thing, and they're investing into the kingdom of God, because this is a calling. This is my calling to protect people. How can I do my calling if I'm not doing the preparation? The God will cause the harvest, but I have to do the work of plowing the field. I need to put this stuff in here. I need to be able to do that. And I'm trying to find as much training for churches as we can, trying to do it as reduced costs as we can. But it blows me away. We have free training here for us. Not free. It was paid for. It has a cost, but it's free to you, and you don't take advantage of it. You know, it's a shame. It's a waste. Don't do it. So we're going to put links in this. Marko, what's your website? And then Brian, what's your website?
My website is t4tactics.com. So it's the letter T, the number 4 tactics, t4tactics.com.
Okay. And Brian?
Yeah, we're at arcadiacognerati.com. We'll have the link in there so you can check us out. And then we also have the Human Behavior podcast on any podcast player. You can check that out, where we talk about some of this. We talk about some what we do and through the lenses of how we teach it and about human behavior in general.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we'll get links in there. If you want a physical seat in the command college, my email will be there. Email me. I've got connections with the professor that's doing it. He said he'll get me seats for people that I give them, and it is going to be well worth it. You're going to be there. Hearing it in person is going to be far better than the webinar, but do the webinar minimum. At least you can say you did it. So thank you guys so much for taking the time. Hopefully this wasn't too long. But it's well worth it. So again, I'm going to stop the recording, and then we'll